The storm raged fiercely as the black limousine pulled up in front of the Prescott mansion, perched on a jagged cliff overlooking the roaring sea. Inside, the grand ballroom was a vivid contrast to the tempest outside. Crystal chandeliers glittered above, casting golden light across polished marble floors. Classical music hummed softly from the corner, blending with the polite chatter of the elegantly dressed guests who had gathered to celebrate Victor Prescott's 60th birthday. Victor, the wealthy and powerful businessman, stood at the center of attention, his glass of red wine raised high. The guests applauded, smiling under the glittering lights, as he declared, "To a long life and a lasting legacy." Among the sea of tuxedos and flowing evening gowns, the heavy oak doors suddenly creaked open. A tall man in a perfectly tailored grey suit entered with a calm, calculating gaze. The room quieted briefly as all eyes turned toward him. Detective Nathan Cross, the man introduced himself with a slight nod. "Mr. Prescott hired me as an additional precaution for tonight's event." The guests exchanged murmurs of curiosity. Elizabeth Prescott, Victor's wife, glanced sharply at her husband but remained silent. Victor merely offered a thin smile and waved the detective inside. The party continued with its lavish indulgence. Champagne flowed freely, laughter bounced between marble pillars, and lightning flashes illuminated the sprawling glass windows, revealing sheets of rain cascading against them. But as the clock neared 10, the mood shifted. Without warning, the mansion was plunged into darkness. Gasps erupted throughout the ballroom. Some guests instinctively ducked, others screamed as the roar of thunder merged with a sudden blinding flash of lightning. For a brief second, the entire room was illuminated, frozen in a tableau of confusion and fear. Then came the shrill shriek of terror as shadows danced wildly under the faint emergency lights that flickered back on. Victor Prescott was gone. No gunshot was heard. No body lay where he once stood. Only an eerie, unsettling silence settled over the mansion as guests whispered and speculated in growing dread. Detective Cross swiftly took control, sealing the mansion and gathering everyone into the ornate drawing room for questioning. The heavy velvet curtains were drawn, casting long shadows as the soft glow from antique sconces highlighted the worried faces of those present. Elizabeth was composed, stating firmly that she was standing among the guests when the blackout occurred. Sophia, Victor's only daughter, trembled with tears in her eyes, her voice barely above a whisper. Edward, her husband, was tense, his eyes darting around nervously. Daniel Crow, Victor's business manager, answered every question with deliberate caution, while Margaret Sinclair, Victor's younger sister, sat with an unsettling calmness, her expression unreadable. Nathan carefully examined the area near the stage where Victor had been standing moments before his disappearance. A faint trail of blood smeared across the marble led behind the heavy curtains. There, behind the drapery, he discovered an open window leading to the rear garden. A thin rope dangled from the frame, as though something had been pulled outside. Outside, the rain continued its relentless assault. Nathan followed faint footprints leading into the estate's gardens. His flashlight cut through the darkness, illuminating wet leaves and muddy trails. Deep within the bushes, he found a discarded pair of gloves and a coil of rope, soaked but unmistakably recent. The next morning, with the storm now reduced to a misty drizzle, Nathan summoned everyone back to the ballroom. The atmosphere was tense, the air thick with suspicion. Victor Prescott was not murdered in this room, Nathan began, his voice calm but firm. Everything was staged. The blackout, the screams, the chaos, all of it meticulously orchestrated. He turned slowly, his gaze settling on Sophia. You stood to inherit everything upon your father's death. Sophia's eyes widened as tears streamed down her face. No. I didn't do this. Before the officers could act, Margaret rose to her feet, her voice slicing through the room. Stop. She spoke coldly. It was me. Gasps echoed through the hall. Even Elizabeth's cold mask cracked for a moment of shock. Victor stole everything from our family years ago, Margaret continued, her voice breaking. I was left with nothing. This was the only way I could reclaim what was rightfully mine. I planned the blackout, the misdirection, everything. She collapsed onto her knees, sobbing as police officers moved to arrest her. The guests stood frozen in disbelief as Margaret was escorted out into the grey morning light. Yet Detective Cross remained still, his eyes narrowing as he reached into his coat pocket, retrieving a small fragment of rope he had kept from the garden. His mind turned. One day, the full truth will reveal itself. As the mansion slowly disappeared behind him, engulfed by the swirling seaside mist, Nathan Cross walked silently down the cobblestone driveway, leaving the sealed mansion behind, but not its secrets.